Hey everyone. Well, happy Resurrection Day. Um, it's raining here in Tennessee. Of course it is, because it's April. It's funny, I remember being in first grade, and the first time I ever felt like kind of insecure about who I was, I looked up at the calendar that had all the months of the year on it, and every one of them had like fun, happy things like, building a snowman or, going to the beach or playing out in the sunshine. And then you get to April and it was like a little trail of ducks all wearing like hats and galoshes and raincoats, and it's just like raining buckets and barrels on them. And it was like the only depressing image out of all of them. It was really funny, but like, being an April baby, I kind of found some revitalization later on in life once I discovered like astrology and the whole Aries thing, because Aries is like very much a fiery, passionate, like warrior kind of uh, horoscope sign or whatever. But this is all like of the devil, and and I got really into that as like a reinforcement of my own self worth and validation, because I identified a lot with that warrior ethos, But I think today is a really important day to like flip that on its head. I wish someone had explained to me back then in a way that I would have absorbed that, like, man, you want a cool warrior story? How about the resurrection story? You know, like Christ, Jesus, the Son of God, unarmed, dies alone on a hill, relatively alone, goes down into hell and spends 3 days down in hell fighting and comes out victorious. That's a cool story. I wish somebody had like really played on that more when I was a kid. I think for a lot of us, a lot of Christian men who maybe identify more with like the warrior ethos, it's hard to really get in line with a lot of Christianity because there's not much there for your warrior mentality. Your real, like what the Greeks called Andrea, that masculine virtue. It's where we get the name Andrea, by the way. Ironically, a girl's name. Battlefield courage, bravery. But man, what a cool story it is to think that your unarmed Savior God in human form comes down to protect the entirety of the human race by going down into hell and defeating death in the grave. It's pretty cool stuff. Anyways, I wanted to talk to you today about another book recommend that I have. When I was 17, that's when I started. So it was 20 years ago. That's when I started working on the Heavenly Realms series of novels. And one of the catchphrases that you'll see on my Instagram page that I use a lot is one that my older brother Nick and I share, which is take up the broken sword of your father and strike down the darkness. Our father was a very strong Christian, a very courageous and resilient man of God. And he had a really strong traditional legacy of Christianity behind him that we sort of carry with us forward, for better or worse. Sometimes we do it well, sometimes I suck at it tremendously. But I remember being 17, and he recommended, he had some old books, and I mean old books, and one of them was this one. This is The Spirit World by Clarence Larkin. This book, I think, was written in 1918, 1921. And this book is awesome. It's all about the spirit world. It's all about demons and Nephilim and fallen angels, and it has all of the old Gustave Doré wood engravings on it, the etchings. I think they're acid etchings. And beautiful artwork. It's also got, he was a dispensationalist, so you may or may not agree with that, but it's also got like the dispensationalist diagrams that he drew. Tremendous stuff. These things are really, really cool. Yeah, you could probably find this book on eBay or Amazon. It's so old, it's probably, I guess it's public domain at this point, so you probably could actually just find it for free, like in PDF form. And I guarantee you there's got to be like a website out there that explains this, anyways. But, but speaking of my older brother Nick, the one who writes the Travelers League series of children's fiction, awesome series of books for your kids, by the way, you should totally check out. It's like Harry Potter meets the Boy Scouts, but not in a way that has like underlying satanic witchcraft. Like it's safe for Christian families. It's really cool stuff. But anyways, he recommended to me this book, The Genesis 6 Conspiracy. This book by Gary Wayne is just like this massive compendium. I mean, look at how small the typeface is on that. And it's got to be 700, and it's almost 800 pages long. Actually, it might be 800 pages. Let's see. I was like getting like the very last. Yep, it's over 800 pages, and it is filled with references, and the actual like table of contents is exhaustive. To the best of my knowledge, this is like 30 years worth of religious, eschatological, and esoteric research that has gone into this. Everything from, you can see the subtitle there is How Secret Societies and the Descendants of Giants Plan to Enslave Mankind. So you could tell, because it's Genesis 6, they're talking about giants. Obviously, this sort of anchors heavily off of the whole Nephilim theory of the Bible, which was a theory of the Bible that I did not know about until I started doing research for the Heavenly Realms novels. And when I turned, when I was like 18, I think, that's when I actually found out about this book. I'd been doing it for a few months at that point, and I found out in this book about the Nephilim. This is what actually clued me in to that translation of Genesis 6, and the teachers in my high school argued with me and said, like, no, it's the righteous sons of Seth versus the evil sons of, or the daughters of Cain, which there's no biblical evidence for. That's a fraud. It was about fallen angels. It was about giants. Anyways, all of that whole experience with, the spirit world and, being 17 and talking to my father, and it eventually led me to write what became Sturm and Drang, which is out now on Amazon. This is the third book in the Heavenly Realms series. I wrote this in 2007 during the season of Lent, ironically enough. And it's about the flood, it's about the Nephilim, it's about all that. And there were some extra chapters in here that I ended up adding after sort of doing a little bit of research in the Genesis 6 conspiracy. There was one in particular. There's an entry in here on the book, or on the subject of Lilith, who was, for those of you who don't know, Lilith is, I think, primarily like a Talmudic or Kabbalistic legend. I'm sure you could probably say archaeologically it's traced back further than that, but it basically is like Lilith was like the first wife of Adam, and she was satanic ultimately. But she developed this mythos eventually that encompassed a whole lot of other things that are exhaustively covered in this. I mean, everything from like the Arthurian surname of Lancelot to Hebrew tradition, Roman tradition. Let's see, we'll just read a couple things here. And Lilith is actually mentioned in the book of Isaiah, or at least we kind of glean that they're talking about Lilith. Different translations do it differently, but it's Isaiah chapter 34, verse 10 through 17. Isaiah 34, 10 through 17. Go look that up in various translations on like Bible Hub, and you'll see. But this entry is, it's only 2.5 pages, but it is full of information because I had made Lilith a character in one of the later books. and I wanted to go back and really introduce her in Sturm and Drang because she was so apropos to the story, being sort of like the consort of Satan. And I took a lot of creative liberties, like I do with all of the angel books. But I needed to do some more research and figure out. I didn't really know a lot about her as a character outside of just what I had known through pop culture. But there's one little chapter or one little paragraph here that says, conversely, Hebrew tradition labeled Lilith as a Lamia, a blood-sucking demon or a vampire of Greek mythology that flew at night like a screech owl. The screech owl part is referenced in Isaiah. Reminiscent of the passage from Isaiah 34:13 through 17 concerning screech owls of Edom and Esau. The connection to the dragon, or Dracula, we have already covered, but now I will connect the vampire, or dragon king, to the screech owl, or the owl king. Owl king, Moloch, you sort of see the references that continue to happen. Look at, kind of plays into here, look at the geometric architecture of Washington, D.C., look at your currency, look at the Bohemian Grove, all of this stuff, it's all very circular, part of a network. What I've come to coin in the Heavenly Realm series as the Phoenix Empyrean, but you could call it like the Luciferian Empire. Hebrew myths record Lilith as the alternative first woman to Eve, but Lilith wanted to be dominant sexually, which did not suit the Hebrew patriarchy. Obviously, this must have occurred before Eve was created from Adam's rib. Lilith must be female, shape-shifting form of dark angel, or the result of yet another violation against creation created with the people of day 6. In Numinous legend, Lilith was the first concubine of Adam before Eve was created, and Lilith was branded as the killer of infants. Blood-sucking, infant-stealing, harpy sort of night gaunt vampire haunting kind of. There's the queen or the countess, I think, who bathed in blood. You get that whole like adrenochrome thing going, It all kind of ties together. And anyways, that's what makes this book so cool. This is an absolute just exhaustive compendium. The table of contents alone are insane on this. You have everything from the Golden Age, Isis, Ishtar, Gaia, the Great World Myth, Atlantis, the descendants of Anak, the Raphaites and Amorites, Sodom and Gomorrah, Nimrod. There's a lot in here about Nimrod. Do you ever wonder why King Nimrod built the Tower of Babel and why God saw fit to foul their construct and their agenda? It's because in the apocryphal text, King Nimrod wanted to invade heaven and pierce the dome and overthrow God and set himself up as king. That's why God confounded the languages during the construction of the Tower of Babel. I think it's in the book of Jasher and the book of Jubilees, but it's kind of hinted at in canonical text as well. There's so much in this book. I could do this forever, and he does it forever. I mean, it's an 800-page book that just links everything that you, every little esoteric, little tangential, orbiting satellite of weird information that just seems vestigial, I think is probably a good word for it. There's a lot of stuff that seems like vestigial organs in the Bible that seem like they don't really fit with the main narrative. They seem kind of like leftovers, of something that has been thrown out. And it turns out that a lot of that stuff is interconnected, whether it's the Grigori, the fallen angels, the Watchers, and their bastard sons, the Nephilim, and the empires that they raised, who eventually caused the Great Flood. And then that also gave way to the rise of King Nimrod, who was an opponent of Abraham. There's even the theory that it was Esau who, when he sold his birthright for a bowl of lentil soup, it was because he had just gotten finished slaying King Nimrod. There's a lot around King Nimrod, but also Nimrod is a very subtle, clandestine figure in the Bible because he eventually was the inspiration for all of your Osiris myths, all of your Greek myths like Apollo, Osiris, Gilgamesh was another one, and then there's also the thing about Sargon of Akkad. He was a man of many. He was Nimrod, and Nimrod was a man of many names. Nimrod was the same one who was missing the eye. That's kind of where the Illuminati get the missing eye. You notice they cover up the eye. The all-seeing eye thing that is so prevalent both in Illuminati and Masonic imagery, Freemason imagery. It all traces back to Nimrod. And Nimrod is an extension of the Empire of Nephilim. And the Empire of Nephilim were the result of fallen angels, the Watchers, who you could say, depending on which version you go with, either Satan orchestrated or Satan was a part of. I did not approach it in Sturm und Drang from the perspective that like Satan was a part of that group. His rebellion in my story happens before, but who knows, man? That's just creative liberty I take. I don't presuppose to know how things like that really went down, but but it makes for an interesting story, and I think you can keep the truths of the Bible while still playing in the fog of war that is the mystery of a lot of that stuff. You just have to be careful. I think you have to be careful not to violate the principles of the Bible or the information that you do have, and I found that the Genesis 6 conspiracy was a great compendium for helping me sort of navigate this more esoteric kind of information. And I don't mean esoteric in like a mystery cult sort of way. It's more esoteric in that no one ever talks about it. There are certain things that you come across when you're trying to write a work of creative, what ultimately you consider to be creative historical fiction. I consider the Angel novels to be creative historical fiction because I believe that those events really did happen, but I think a lot of them are shrouded in mystery. You know, it'd sort of be like chronicling one soldier's journey through the Battle of Antietam. You know, you are going to have to make up something at some point to connect the dots and create a coherent story. Genesis 6 conspiracy really helped me sort of get through that, so I think you guys would really enjoy it. If you did, check it. If you enjoyed this, if you've read this, then you're going to enjoy this. If you think this is cool, you have to check out this, because this is really neat too. These are big books that really helped me kind of guide my way through that in a godly way. And all of the books are available as a series now. I'm working on the fourth one. God decided that it was best to bless me with a dead hard drive on my laptop for my birthday. So he's teaching me a lot about patience, again, a lesson I've continually learned my whole life. So it'll be a while before the fourth book is out, but I've kind of changed up the game plan a little bit, so we'll see. Go check out the Genesis 6 conspiracy. I think you'd really enjoy it. And I don't believe in saying Happy Easter, because Easter is Ishtar, and that's a Babylonian fertility ritual festival. So I prefer to say Happy Resurrection Day. Thank you. See ya.